Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I guess I shouldn't say morning because people watching this won't know that we filmed this way too early for my liking.
I know. Neither one of us are morning people, but well, it always cheers me, and I have my Diet Coke because you know that's my bad habit.
We're caffeinating.
Yes. So it is 7:30 with you, 8:30 with me, and yeah, neither of us are morning people. So yay us, we look pretty good.
Rocking and rolling. I'm Megan, for anybody who has just started watching.
I'll say we have to introduce ourselves.
And I'm here in St. Louis at the Needlepoint Clubhouse, also known as STL Needlepoint. And this is my friend.
And I'm Melissa McLeod at the Wool and the Floss, and I'm in Detroit, Michigan. I'm just outside of Detroit, and yeah, it's a gorgeous day here, and I love summer, and I wish it lasted all year long, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm opposite. I don't like the humidity. It's my hair does weird things. I have to use all these products, you know.
That should be you. Anyway, we wanted to welcome everyone to Pointing It Out. If you haven't watched us before, welcome. Please hit subscribe, tell your friends all about us. The subscribe button really helps us support the channel, lets other people know we're around. I think we've both gotten lots of great feedback, so we'd love to all of you to share the love with everyone else, because we all need a little good stitchy distraction. So
absolutely. I ran into somebody at the Starbucks line this morning who told me that they were enjoying the podcast. I kind of felt like a little bit of a celebrity. It was sort of fun.
Well, I got a text yesterday from one of my customers who said, "You're famous. My friend in St. Louis wanted to make sure that I knew about you."
Oh.
And she happens to be a good friend of mine too. So she's texting me. She's like, okay, I wasn't even sure what to say to her. Like, thanks for letting me know that one of my good friends is doing this.
That's right.
It was cute.
And my husband likes to remind me that I'm famous in my tiny little needlepoint world, but that's all right. That's all right. We appreciate all the love. So as people may or may not have figured out, we have started, you do a week, I do a week, and then we've been doing a week together. So this is our week together.
Yes. And
we landed on what I think to be a really fun topic, and a topic that maybe some of the seasoned stitcher viewers won't find as educational as some of our newer stitchers, but I do find people who have been stitching for a really long time who have always just used wool. And so what we're here to talk about today is stranded threads. We're going to strand and strip and lay.
You can do that part.
Couldn't help myself.
I'll do the boring part because that's usually where I fall into place. So, so I find that we're both so fortunate that we're meeting all these brand new stitchers right now, or people who haven't stitched in 30 years when your choice was pattern iron or pearl cotton. So There's so many great thread choices now, and we're not going to go into all of them today, but we have like a lot of what I call, I don't know if you use the same terminology, like grab and go threads. So like silk and ivory, merino wool, vineyard silk, these kind of things. Essentials, which I love. That's a new one to my shop, thanks to you.
We love essentials. We also love Pepper Pot from the same distributor, which is also.
I pulled some of that. I forgot about that.
Cut and go.
But yeah, so this, as everyone knows, you just open up the skein, you pull out a single strand. I think these are called strands. Someone on here is going to yell at us because we're using the wrong terms at some point. So I'm going to apologize in advance that at some point I'm going to throw out the wrong term. But
I'll remind everybody what I always say here in my shop, which this is an art, it's not a science, and there's different terminology and different ways you've learned it. So away you go with your strand of thread.
And pretty soon, I've had my pillow is at the finisher, the no needlepoint police allowed. That's
thank you.
Yeah, this is the needlepoint safe space. So thank you.
I'm actually staring at the stitching safe place sign right here. So,
yes, so this one you just pull out one little single strand, grab and go, and away you go. So lots of people, this is really simple to them. And then if I bring up anything else, they kind of go, oh no, don't make me. But you and I both know, if you know a few really basic things, any other thread isn't hard. I mean, there's a couple that are hard. Any other thread we're going to talk about today is not hard.
Let's be honest, thread is not hard. Thread is not brain surgery.
No, but some of it, for some people, there's certain threads that are more frustrating than it's worth.
100%. I agree.
So,
I agree.
Yeah. So
we got our cut and goes, and we're going to say we love them, but we're going to leave them for today.
Right. And then there's some like intermediaries. And I think this is a thread you and I talked about that neither one of us carry, but I came across it in my stash and it's a lovely thread. It's just, there's only so much room on the wall. And so this is from Silk and Ivory and it's called Trio. And it's still 50-50 silk and still 50-50.
It's the same makeup. Yeah.
But it has 3 strands and you just pull these apart. And I think on 18 you use 1 or 2. I think 1 on 18 and 2 on 13 maybe. I don't use this one a whole lot. But anyways, this is what I call like an intermediary. You're not pulling it all apart and stranding it, but you're doing like a little of that.
You're stripping it.
Yeah, I guess you are. So.
I also, from a cut and go perspective, when someone's working on 10 mesh, I order Trio from the distributor, and we use Trio on 10 mesh.
Really? I'm still perplexed by that. So they don't take it apart, they just use it as is? Huh. Okay. Well, we don't sell any 10 mesh in our shop. Occasionally I have someone come in and I've had them just use regular Silk and Ivory, but I'll be honest, I don't really know how successful it is because I've never stitched on 10 mesh. So I think I need to give that a try. Just,
it's funny. I actually visited, how we like to say we visit new shops. I visited the Quarter Stitch in New Orleans, and I bought a 10 mesh canvas because it was a vintage one that they had, and I have some love for vintage, and I just felt like when in New Orleans, do antiquing. And so, but they sell the wool, the pattern wool. So anyway, I digress. So back to your intermediary step.
Okay, so
I think you're commentator today, so
Yes, you carry this. I love impressions, but again, there's only so much room in my shop. So most people, this is an open one. I think do you have a closed one near you or not? It doesn't really matter.
I didn't grab it.
It's a twist when it comes, right? It kind of looks loosely like that, right, on the wall.
Yeah. Yes.
So you just cut this open and you pull out a strand. I should have worn a white shirt if I were smart.
Not a bad.
And you use 1 or 2 strands on 18, depending on your stitch tension.
Yeah, so to your point, it could be a cut and go if you're doing a stitch. Actually, I have a sample where I used, hold on. So if you can see, I don't know if you can see that very well, but I did like a treme, and that's 1 strand of impressions.
Oh, nice. So then it becomes a grab and go. You're right.
18. And I know a lot of people who love 1 strand of impressions in general on 18, even for basket weave. But I love impressions. It's one of my favorite threads, but I almost always use 2 strands because a lot of what I at least used to do is belts. And so we always suggest 2 strands of impressions on belts because it gives it that nice thick feel. So
I think that leads into like the idea with a lot of these threads is if you come into our shops or another shop or you're talking to another stitcher and they'll say, and I write a lot of stitch guides and I'll write down how many strands or how many ply when we're talking about truly strandable threads. And I will put 3 or 4 ply or you're saying it's 1 or 2 strands because it really depends on the stitch you're using and your own personal tension. Some people are very loose stitchers. Some people are very tight stitchers, and there's nothing wrong with either one of those things. It's just that you have to know your role in the world. And
yeah. And I always tell people too, use your selvage, test it, test out a strand or 2 and see what you think. And I think there are reasons also to use 1 or 2, even depending on your tension, because let's say you've got something in the foreground that you want to have a little more oomph, and then you want your background to be much more subtle and light. Maybe you would use 2 strands of impressions and 1 strand of impressions on the same canvas. It really just depends on, like you said, the stitch, the look you're going for, your tension, and all those things.
And if you're trying to change colors, like that Mary Poppins canvas you just showed, like if you're trying to change,
right,
like
that's
pink to red, you might need to. Not that you'd ever do that because those colors are gorgeous, but if you were trying to do that, you might want to use 2 strands just to make sure you cover it. But if you were keeping it pink, 1 strand would probably work fine. So
That's right.
anyway,
That's right. Yep.
So intermediary choice. I think you and I both carry Bella Lusso. And
Love
Bella
Bella
Lusso,
Lusso.
100% wool, super duper soft. On 18, I almost always use 2 strands of this. With white, I always use 3. And I think it's either, and I don't know enough about this, maybe you do, it's either the dyeing process makes it loftier, or is it a bleaching process that makes the white thinner? But in any event, the white's
I don't know, when I get my hair dyed, I know that it adds a little oomph, so we'll use that as our.
Yeah, I don't know which way it goes, but in any event, I almost always go up a strand with white.
Well, and on belts, again, for really heavy, good coverage, we use 3 Bella
Yeah,
Lusso.
and I think you have to for sure with white and other colors.
And do you carry Vermilana?
Well, I was just gonna say, and I think you carry Milana. Again,
Yep.
you have a lot more wall space in your shop or square footage than I do. So I'm always saying you have it, I don't, and I'm very jealous. But yeah, so it's its cousin. I mean, different manufacturer, but you know, it's kind of the same.
Well, this has acrylic in it though, so it is a little shinier.
Oh yeah, I guess it does. See, I don't know that much about it because it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't tell me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. This says.
Yeah, but no, I meant percentage wise. That's what I was looking for.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I have no idea what the breakdown is. Yeah, but I would say that to me this is thinner than Bella, so I would almost always use 4 if I'm trying to get full coverage. But again.
Yeah. But, and so with these threads, you're really like, we haven't brought up that evil term laying tool. I don't think most people use a laying tool with any of these.
No, I think if you use a laying tool with any of those, then you are really, really more advanced and more patient than I will
ever. More OCD.
I was trying to be polite.
But see, I get deemed that, so I figured it was okay for me to say it.
That's good.
And the other one that I carry that I love and that I don't think you carry is the Soy Luster. Excuse me.
Yes, that's a thread that I have only used because you have introduced me.
And it's all hanging behind me. It's these little skeins, and I love it. It is. I have to look on this. They drive me crazy because this one doesn't say what it is, and I should always know. It says 100% soy silk, which I think is a combination of bamboo and silk and something else that I can never remember. So anyway, it's a lovely thread to work with, and it has a slight variegation, and we'll get into that. But again, one thing I like about this, and I think the Karen threads do this as well, it gives you a little cheat sheet on here. So it gives you a guide that on 24 count, if anyone's that brave to use 1 strand, 18 count 2 strands, and 13 count 3 strands. So you don't even have to remember it. I think Impressions has that little.
And I wonder if any cross stitchers use that. Because 24 count is a little common with the cross stitch world. So.
Could be, although I've never I mean, I don't have a ton of cross stitchers, but cross stitchers that come in tend to ask me more for the strandable things that we're about to talk about.
Yep, that's right.
So these are kind of the intermediaries. I do love this thread. 2 ply. So, and again, it's kind of like Impressions. In certain cases, you might use 1. I'm
going to digress really quick. Do you feel like soy gives you that same kind of sheen, or like Impressions, or is it sort of, you're going to show me
on here? So
if I had started that canvas that I bought from you,
I can't tell where I'm pointing. Good thing I didn't.
You're in the bricks.
The bricks are in soy, and so it's a little bit more matte than silk, but down on the bottom is Gloriana, so you can see the difference between silk and soy there.
Kind of hard for us to see on the screen there, but I understand what you're saying, and I'll take.
But there's not a huge difference in real life, so and no, I did not use a laying tool on any of this. So
which is amazing to me.
Yeah. So I'm in the vein of true confessions. I sell laying tools. I personally use them from time to time, but many times I call these my laying tools, and I'll take my needle and separate my threads like halfway through and rethread.
Like kind of comb them out a little bit.
Yeah,
well, let's go into the stranded threads, because I think it'll make more sense when we are talking about like you're doing combing and stuff.
If anyone doesn't want to use a laying tool and feel like they have to, that's maybe kind of a good option.
Well, those are good, yeah, because those kind of lay by themselves better, I guess. Yeah. That's what you're
saying. So then we can move into our true stranded topic, which is where we were really heading.
sense.
And I think, in general, there's two kind of subtopics, two by twos. There's cottons and there's silks, and then there's solids and there's variegateds, right?
Absolutely. That's a very great way to break it down. Thank you,
We'll
Melissa.
talk about all of those. So at the bottom of the food chain, so to speak, is the workhorse of, we carry Anchor cotton. Do you have Anchor or do you have DMC?
We have Anchor.
Okay. So one thing that a lot of people don't realize is they're designed to be a pull skein. Do you know that?
If you find the right end.
Well, the right end's usually sticking out when you buy it.
See what I just did? Not the right end.
Wrong end. Let's hope mine's the right end. But anyways, if you, yeah, see, mine just pulls right out.
Of course it is. That would just work right for you. I haven't had my whole cup of coffee yet. And I don't know where my other end is. So
yeah, so this is 6 ply cotton, and I don't have scissors right by me. That was stupid. Do you have scissors right by you?
Yep. Because you want to know why?
You smart.
Into the shop? Nope. I ran into the shop and look at this menagerie.
Keychain, like you always talk about. Yeah, mine are, well, my purse isn't here, so I do have a pair in my purse. But anyways, you get to be the Vanna White now because you can show people how you cut it.
So tell me where you were going with this. Are you going with do you cut your floss into? No, you just do your this, right?
I would just cut a piece. Yeah, I would just cut a piece off, and then we're going to strand this. So cotton is ply cotton, and on most projects on 18 mesh, you'd use 3 or 4 ply, depending how you use it. And most people that tell me that they hate plying, and I'll tell you the bad girl way to do it because I can do it with this, is if you have learned how to ply threads and what you do is go like this, see, it already happened. If you pull the part sideways, you're going to get a big knot, and you're going to be like, I freaking hate stranding threads, and you're going to throw it aside and you're never going to do it again.
Yeah. So the first thing that's right. So the first thing I always tell people is I'm like, okay, put it here between your fingers and you wake it up. You say, hello, hi, wake up a little bit, guys. Wake up. Do you see what that does? Do you see what that does?
Yes, but the wake up's worth the experience. That's worth the entry fee right there.
Hey guys, wake up. But what that allows you to do then is to see the ply.
Right.
And I always just kind of lightly pinch this finger and I just do this.
And I was talking about curls up like a little girl's curly Q curls. You know how like those like little girls, you can get a super curly darling hair and you can pull on their things and it springs back.
And then I'll do that again. And you know, when somebody told me this, it's similar to the time when somebody showed me how to cut my skein of pearl cotton so that I had stitchable lengths. I was like, I mean, this is life-changing because like what you're just doing, like presumably you're just going to pull them apart, right? But no.
No, because then like literally you'll throw it away. You'll be so mad to do it again.
Right. And so the other thing I want to say, sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts, but so I just pulled 3 out, right? And you said that you typically use 3 or 4 on 18 count, depending on what you're doing. I would not then say, oh, look, great, I have 3 here because I've already pulled 3 out. Because they're still kind of mushed together. So what I do, and I know it's a pain in the neck, but I pull them all out. I lay them all on the little side of the arm of the sofa.
Right.
As I'm doing this, and then I just pick them up as I'm going along and regroup them together. Now I know some people thread their needles, like they'll get them all ready, so they'll have like needles lined up. I don't do that, but could. But you see how, I don't know if you can get a good look, but it just looks, there's air in it. It gives it, it's like true.
Well, because where we're going with this is you want your threads to lay nice and flat on the canvas. And if you leave them in a round shape, they're going to be rounded on the canvas. If you separate them, they're going to all lay down flat and neighborly like. And that's the goal with the stranded silk or the stranded cotton, is to get them to lay down and be friends together.
Yep.
And I think kind of what you were referring to is when I separate it, so I will typically know whether I need to use 3 or 4 ply. And I do a little math in my head. So this is 6 ply cotton. So if I'm going to do 3 strands, I would do 1, 2, 3, and I'm a waist knot user. So I'd knot those 3 together and set them aside.
Yeah.
And then I'd go 1, 2, 3 and knot those together and set them aside.
Okay.
If I were doing 4 strands, 4 ply, again, I don't know, I would cut 2 pieces the exact same length, because 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So otherwise, you've got those
You're homeschooling. You want to come down?
laying around, and if they're not put together with friends, they're just going to get thrown out.
Yeah, they just get lost and then they're wasted.
And
for sure.
For like, I think these are 95 cents or something silly, 85 cents. I can't remember.
Yep.
If you waste 2 strands of this, who cares? But we're going to be working our way up the food chain. And then we're talking about really, really nice silk. You don't want to waste 2 strands of that.
That's right. That's right. So, so what she's saying though, is I don't know if you can see, like she says, she kind of combs them out, because as you stitch with this, it's going to get all tangled up. And so you're going to be on top and they're going to look all messy. And so Melissa's just saying she kind of maybe takes her needle and kind of combs them out a little bit, or, you know, the common thing where you just let it drop and untwist first. And, so there's a little bit of managing this as you're stitching with it. But if you're doing basket weave, do you really comb it out that much?
No. Just
it's really just making sure all your links come all the way through as you're stitching, but it's not, you don't need to lay them down because they're all just smooshed together.
So that is our anchor floss. Do you want to talk about other cottons, or do we want to talk about a silk?
Sure. And what I was just going to throw out there real quick is it might be a great idea even to just grab a floss. You might even have one in your sewing kit or something and just practice it to see if you even like a stranded look. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah. And
it's the least expensive of all the threads we're going to talk about.
And then we carry Splendor, which is silk, but it's not tremendously expensive. Again, I probably should have looked at a price list. We don't tag our individual threads, but Splendor is a 12 ply silk, and I want to say it's like $5 ish. So it's not crazy expensive, considering there's 8 yards on here, but really, for most people, this becomes 24 yards because it's 8.
Well, that's what I always remind people too. It's 12 ply versus 6, so there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, so there's almost 24 yards on here if you're using 4 strands, and you could do the math if you're using 3. There's 2 yards. And this piece, did I already open? I think I did, because it instantly, I'll let you show that. It instantly breaks up into like little bundles of 4s when you do your wake up, wake up.
I feel right now. Wake up. Yeah. Okay. So we do the little wake up call, guys. Also known as tapping, but that's not nearly as much fun, Melissa.
No, see, I always say tap, tap, tap. And now every time I say tap, 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 I'm going to think of you going, wake up, wake up.
Wake up, wake up, guys. Just wake up for me. It's because I have little kids and I'm like, hi, guys. And I have a puppy. So I'm like, hello, come on. Sorry, I'm trying to expertly / not expertly give you all 3. Here we go. So you can see.
Yeah, so it wants to be in 3 bundles of 4, which isn't terribly important, except for that it kind of helps you count as you're pulling.
Well, and if you know you're going to use 4, you can still do the trick.
But then,
wake them up, wake up, pull them all out.
There you go.
And then piece them all back together again. Yep, I got fancy there and I got tangled up with my other thread.
So again, the whole point of this is, if for those that have used a lot of grab and go, I'm going to show you another example. I love vineyard silk. I use it all on like almost every ornament I do. There's some sort of vineyard silk on it. But in this example, this Splendor up here, this is an open stitch, did I use 3 or 4 ply? Oh, you know what? Yeah, no, I think I used 3 ply on there, but it just lays down nice and flat. And because it's the background, it's just really, it fades into the background because it's nice and flat. Whereas, the threads that I used on the firecrackers are popping forward because they're heavier threads. So the Splendor allows you to lay it nice and flat.
Back to that density kind of point.
Right. And so there's 3 strands.
I haven't moved from this spot and somehow I've already lost my needle. So.
Uh-oh. I'd hand you one, but it's a long way.
So funny. I was like, literally, I must have okay, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is nice and flat.
I'm laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself.
And that's the purpose of using a stranded silk instead of, I can't see what I'm showing you, so hopefully you can see it.
So you're saying, what I can see is your background, and what you're saying is on the white, you use the stranded silk, right?
Well, it's a pale blue, hopefully.
Oh, it's pale blue. Oh, okay. So what we more of, is stranded. Yeah, and I will say, I just went ahead and said they should try Anchor just to try it. There is nothing like stranded silk. Like when you stitch with it, it is so beautiful and it lasts forever. Um, anyway, there's a reason why you spend a little more on a stranded silk opposed to a stranded cotton.
Yeah, and you can see down here too, like this is the stranded silk on the top, and then the main thread in the bottom background stitch is vineyard silk, which again is lovely, but it has a much heavier feel to it.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted something heavier at the bottom, to weigh weigh the bottom of the canvas down like it should be. Anyway, I thought that was a nice example of
the perfect example. That's good. So now we've talked about kind of the bases. So we've got the cotton floss base. We've got the Splendor 12 ply. I don't think, does Rainbow Gallery do any kind of an overdye with their Splendor?
Not that I'm aware of. The one thing like in that vein, but not really, and I think you brought it up earlier when we were talking privately, is they do these designer cards.
Yes. Love these.
And they do these in colors too, but I call these their face cards. I don't know if that's what you refer to them as, but I call them their face cards, and they have 3 different color options in face cards. So this is like the bronze porcelains. And what I love about this is when you have a face on a canvas, there's always some shading, and you don't have to like stress over what matches because the experts have done it for you.
Right.
And there is,
I want to have lighter skin tone.
There's 2 yards of each color, which really again means that there's like 6 yards, and most of the time faces aren't that much. So I think I own one of each of these and have for like 7 years, and I don't think I've ever run out of any color except for maybe the top color on 1 or 2 of them. So this is the bronze one. I think you have the Santa's Rosy Cheeks nearby.
Yeah, and it is actually incredible when you are trying to help someone thread a Santa face, and he's got like really rosy cheeks, and then he's got a little bit of pink over here to give him like dimension on his face.
Bright red lips.
This is amazing. The lips might be slightly pinker, and I can't in good conscience be like, hey, you need 6 different cards of Splendor because I have this.
Well, this is like the cost of 2 cards of Splendor, basically maybe 2.5.
I can't remember.
So it's a really good value.
Back to your point though, they do like a bronze, a pink. They've also got a purple, a Delft blue. So if you're doing one of those blue canvases and you need just different shades of blue, there's also a Halloween one and a Christmas one, which is cool. The Christmas one has red and green and yellow and maybe a couple colors of red. Anyway, it's cool.
Sorry.
You want to do if there's a Christmas ornament with lots of like little balls on the tree or something, you can just grab one of these cards and do that. But yeah, so back to my question, which was how else is Rainbow Gallery using Splendor? Because we know that cotton floss is the base for some of the other dyed threads, which we're gonna grab.
So we talked about grab and go, and then we talked about soy, and now we're going to get up to some of the variegateds that are here, and I think we've got some others to talk about. But the next one up the rainbow above the little soy guys is Threadworks, which is a cotton floss. So we're back to the number 6 again, and here's an open one, and this one has some variegation to it. Which can you see that on the screen? I can't really tell how well you can see.
We can't, but versus this one.
There's a strongly variegated one. Good job.
Which is I would call, and maybe again, remember the police are out, but wouldn't you call that an overdye? Like an overdye is like a subtle, and then this is truly variegated because it's got different colors. Or
I think that you're right, but I come from the yarn world too. And so, yeah, I don't know. I get confused about what's what.
So this is a great example of the one that like is dyed all the way through, right? It changes color. To the point, so this is used, well, whichever base, I don't know if it's DMC or Anchor or what, but it's a floss, it's a cotton floss base, and then they dye it, and they dye it either in a subtle overdye or in the true variegated heavy form. This probably reminds you in the yarn world of like sock yarn, right? Because if you do it right, it'll stripe itself.
Well, that would still be considered variegated yarn, which is different from self-striping, but we're digressing into a whole nother realm that most of
Yeah. But anyway, that's not what point. The point is that there are heavy variegations and there's light variegations. So
yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't carry a lot of those because I think people that are doing painted canvases are scared of them. I find a lot more of my people that do counted pieces really like those because the designers will design around the colorway, right?
I think that overdye threads and uses is probably a whole nother, which I know is not a word, another episode entirely. So why don't we table that conversation? But the point is that these are cotton overdyes. Yes. And we carry Threadworks like Melissa. We also carry Weeks Dye Works, which people love. We do get a lot of cross stitch traffic in here because there is no other cross stitch shop around, and so a lot of the cross stitchers love these because they're very small amounts. I don't even know how many, but it
is small,
5 yards instead of
these I think are also 5, but
20. This is 20 yards. This is 5. So that's the difference. We eat up a lot more thread in the needlepoint world than the cross stitchers do.
Our squares are bigger.
That's right. So those are the cottons. I think that's the only cotton overdyes strandable. Well, we also carry watercolors, which I'm just gonna, it's sitting right here. I'm gonna grab it because I just saw somebody.
You gotta wanna run on me because all my interviewees run away from me.
Yeah. But anyway, it's right here. And this is a cool thread from the Karen collection too. And I just saw somebody using this on Instagram yesterday. That's why I'm doing it. But this wakes up just the same and it's 3 ply. I know. I'm fine with it. I'm happy with my terminology, so you can laugh all you want. Anyway, it's 3 ply, and I believe it's 1 on 18.
Yes.
But it's a cotton. It's almost like a pearl cotton twist up. I don't know.
I get watercolors and water lilies confused, so I think that
water lilies is isn't water lilies silk?
Yeah, I would say I think that's cotton. Water lilies is silk. That's my
recollection. But back to your point too, these are great because like this says for 10, hey, here we go. For 10 count canvas, you use all 3.
There we go.
13, 14, 2, and 18, 1. So I was close.
Yeah.
Anyway,
give us a helping hand.
That covers the cottons that I carry overdye wise, or strainable. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
And then what I'm going to be really jealous of is when people can look at my wall and see all those glorious Glorianas up there, although I do have some empty pegs because Gloriana is a little hard to order from because everything I think is hand dyed and it's very labor intensive. Therefore, it becomes a little bit pricier. And I believe you have the entire collection and I probably have about, I don't know, 40% maybe, but.
We just decided to take the plunge because it's an expensive thread. It's expensive to stock, but Gloriana we call the Cadillac. It's the most beautiful, luxurious thread.
it might be closer to a Porsche because it is just delicious.
I agree. It's soft. It's beautiful. The sheen is wonderful. It's nice to use. It's fabulous for sure. So
one of my favorite colors I'm realizing as I'm petting it because it's so soft. This is leaf green. I use this leaf green and sky blue all the time. Like they're my 2 favorite colors. And I show you sky blue, but I'm out of it, of course, because I love it. So I have more on order. But this is 12 ply silk, again, similar to Splendor. But I think this, do you remember what the base is for this?
It's either Aver Soie or I think it's Aver Soie or Soie d'Alger. Those I mix those 2. But yes, it's a higher end silk, and again, we could go into silks.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So I think the one thing to talk about with these, and again, I tend to carry, you have the full line, so you're going to have some that are a little crazier, for lack of a better word, stronger color changes. I tend to carry the more subtle changes, just because again, space issues. And these are very usable. The ones with the stronger color variations are gorgeous in the right spot. You just have to be more cognizant of where you're putting them, I guess. But even sometimes people will tell me, well, that has too strong of a variegation. So I think the one like trick to know about with these is when you are, hold on, I had a piece that was already cut and I screwed it up. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, I put it in my lap, so it was handy.
So it's handy, yeah.
So, you're going to pull your strand just like you normally would. And I'd love to say wake up, but I just can't do it without laughing. So I'm going to tap, tap, tap so I can keep talking.
Wake up, guys, wake up.
And I'm going to pull it up straight, just like Megan did. And then I usually hold it. I don't necessarily put it down. And I pull the second one up straight. And then I will lay them down, and I'll get to the point of why in 1 second, and then I'll separate these two. And so sometimes you want your variegation to be a little stronger because you want like a cloudy section of sky and a less cloudy section of sky, let's say. But if you want to basket weave with this, which a lot of times you don't want to basket weave with a variegated thread because you get diagonal stripes. And that's, obvious if you think about it, light blue, darker blue, really dark blue. You get these funky.
Sometimes you want that look, but I would say 95% of the time you probably don't, but you don't realize how to change it, right?
Yes. So I just pulled these out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two with my top end and match them up to the other two I pulled with the bottom end. So I've flipped two. So then when I knot them together, you've got your variegations going in, sorry, I'm not showing this very well, two different directions. So suddenly you still get a nice, soft, subtle variegation. It's even more subtle than it was to start with. So now you can basket weave with this because you're not going to get that strong stripe look.
Perfect.
So, and
I've also heard to continental stitch. I haven't done it myself with the variegation. If you want like a strié looking sort of like sky or if it's like a sunset or something, that you might want it to go this way opposed to like this way.
Yes, and I did have another, I told you this, I know earlier, one of my very good customers started out as a cross stitcher. So I think she thinks about needlepoint differently than those of us who started out in the needlepoint world. And so she does skip tent, which is basically basket weave every other thread up and down the diagonal. And then she goes back and fills in the open threads. So again, it's shaking up the variegation. So it doesn't look stripy.
And what I told you is that sounds like torture. Because to me, skip tent, you're like, oh, I'm skipping, I'm done. And then you're like, yeah, I'm done. Oh, no, wait, I have to go back in and fill in all the holes. So,
but if you've ever done like a Chody's plaid, that's what you do.
That's true. That's exactly right. That's exactly
generally my experience with
you just have to have the mindset that you
got to know going in. So.
Yeah.
So that's like my biggest trick, I think, with variegated threads. And obviously that's going to work with your silks and your cottons. I think it would be a disaster with the strongly overdyed ones you were showing.
I don't know. It would look a little
confused.
So so a strong variegation with this basket weaving would be weird. It would be sectional, I would think, because there's like two, because it would go like all blue, or excuse me, all purple, all red, all purple, all red. Going like this, I think would be interesting. It would all depend on how much you're doing. Mixing them up, I think would make it look maybe tweedy or something.
I don't know. I feel like it would.
I'd have to try it. I've never tried it.
It could be an interesting background.
But I will tell you something that we do with these threads, particularly this guy. And Threadworks also makes an overdye sparkle, an overdye Krynic. We use it for, we have a canvas that has a, what'd you say?
My favorite.
Oh, it's a great thread.
That's, again, another day, but love it.
Right. But we use it for, we have a canvas that shows a crowd of people, which we don't see much anymore except for in canvas right now. But it's meant to be like the audience at a theater. And so it's like all these different dots of color. And when you look at it, you're like, oh man, I do not want to stitch that. But if you stitch it with this, it changes color itself.
Right.
And so each person, like each stitch is like the back of a person's head or a person. And so it just is all multicolored. I think that same would work if you were doing like a field of flowers from far away, or you could actually continental stitch with it and it would just change colors on itself.
I'm so sorry about the allergy cough. I have
feel bad for you.
a couple other examples here if you want to see things that I
do.
So this is that classic Ann Fisher sled that like the whole world is stitched for a good reason. It's fabulous.
Beautiful. But is the sled slats?
Sled itself, I'm trying to get a good angle, is,
the wood.
I'll be honest, right now I can't remember if it's Threadworks or Gloriana because I've sold both for it. But yeah, and I am pretty sure that I did not flip here because you can see how some boards are darker than others. So those I left them.
Well, and I don't know if you really need to when you're doing a stitch like that, because the idea of it is that it does look irregular.
Right. So that was I made that intentional choice here. So
yeah.
I would have different splotches of color. And I showed you that one already. This is kind of interesting. So the bottom of these, this is a Kelly Clark canvas, and the pots are soy with Threadworks as the crossovers. But what I really want to show you was this topiary.
Oh, they're French knots.
That's Threadworks.
Yeah, there's a great green Threadworks. I can picture that. Yep. Yeah. That looks great.
So,
yep.
You know, people are like, oh my God, all those different threads. I'm like, no, one thread. Let the thread do the work for you. You know. So
here's a question for you that I think is something to point out. So do you may or may not remember when you made those French knots, do you know if you always used 3 or 4 threads in your needle?
I think I used the same number of threads in my needle because back to that little OCD thing, like that would be, but that's a good idea. But I think what I did do was I did some of them as double knots and some of them as triple knots.
So, but the point to a stranded thread argument, which we're trying to get to here, is you can choose. So maybe you would do, you know, one needle threaded with 3, and then your next needle is threaded with 4, and then your next needle is threaded with 2, and you do 2 wraps or something. I think that's what's really cool about stranded thread is you can really control the density. Is that the word I'm looking for? I guess so. Like how thick it is.
Yeah.
And so then it, like trees and animals, like I had someone in the other day that did a lamb with all French knots and different stranded threads, like I think it was Bella Lusso actually. And so you can use different wraps and you get that kind of like a look that's kind of more natural because in nature, everything's not perfect. So
I think, as I recall, I did that on these bullion knots. Sorry to show this one, but I used this as a stitch guide with a lot of different teachings. So the bullion knots on here, I believe, are that same Threadworks thread, and I use some of them with 2 ply and some of them with 3.
So you're talking about the green. What is the? Do you know?
Those are green bullion knots. The knots above it are Silk Road fibers, which is a different thread.
Yes, which we did talk about in discussing this episode. We did talk about bringing up Silk Road fiber. So for anybody who's like, why didn't you bring that up? It is a stranded thread, but we feel like it's a beast and an awesome beast in and of its own. And so we're kind of coming up with a separate.
We got a plan to talk about that another day. But yeah. So that's and I think I can't remember. I think this is Gloriana up top in the green. So there are a lot of different silks in this.
So I used, I don't know if you can see buildings here. I don't know if you can really see that, but that's Gloriana. And I did not, what you say, flip the threads around. I just used it as it came off. And one thing I do, whether or not this is expert advice or not, I don't cut my Gloriana like the 2 ends like like I would some threads, because I intentionally want to make sure that I'm not always using the exact length. So to me, because the over dye, it's a repeated dye process, right? So I don't know if it's 12 inches or 16 inches or what exactly it is, but it only dyes in sections. So if you just cut it, like, let's say for my first chunk, for lack of a better word, I accidentally or without paying attention did like an 8.5 inch length. And then maybe the next time I did like a 9 or a 9.5 inch length. They're all about the same length, but they're slightly different. So that way you're not going to get an exact repeat in your stitch too. Does that make sense?
Right, for sure.
So, but this definitely, I want to say, was like 3 strand, and it really kind of worked for the side of the building because it changed colors, like as if the sun was hitting it, and it really kind of subtly did that. But I didn't work too hard at it. It just changed on its own, and I think that's cashmere or Scotch. I always mix those up. stitch, but it just kind of variegates on its own. So
Gotcha's a square.
So to wrap things up, I just wanted to kind of.
Hold on, I want to show you one more thing because I have a really good example of anchor floss.
Oh, good. I'm sorry.
So
I love that canvas. I've always loved that canvas.
Because this is a work in progress, one of my many. So, and I believe this is a stitch guide by Connie Camp, is my recollection, but the fence is anchor floss and encroaching Goblin, and I believe it's 3 ply. And I did have 3 or 4 needles going at a time to get those distinct colorways. I've also, and I should have pulled the sample, I also have another fence sample where it was a white fence with like kind of crackling gray. And I'm so sorry. And in that case, I put 2 strands of white in a needle and 1 strand of gray in the needle.
I was just about to ask you if what you did for that. So what you essentially did was create your own over dye, kind of, or more like sort of like a.
I had 4 needles going, and again, this was Connie Camp stitch guide, so I can't take any credit for it. But I think the goal was to have very distinct colors in it, and like, anchor flosses were, all of the same color family.
Right. Okay. Interesting. That's cool.
And then this sky stitch I did change from her stitch guide because I wasn't in love with the process of her stitch. And that's, actually, I think that's Threadworks again. There's a really cool gray blue Threadworks that I sell a lot of. So that's that one. So yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
But I don't think anchor floss gets enough love sometimes. So I wanted to make sure to show people like what you can do with anchor floss.
Yeah, I mean, I think suffice it to say there's a lot of things you can do if you feel industrious, but I also think that what we're trying to point out is basket weaving. So if you're, and that's what I was going to try to wrap up, is that if you are a rather new stitcher, if you're sort of intimidated by these threads, come in and we're happy to help you, but don't be intimidated thinking that you have to go to stranded and stitches at the same time. There's a lot of solid, beautiful threads. One that I skipped over when we were talking.
I just realized that too.
Yeah, was Planet Earth 6 Ply. So Planet Earth 6 Ply is very similar to the Splendor. I didn't have my card. Yeah. Splendor is 12 ply. Planet Earth is 6 ply. I find the 6 ply to be a little more substantial in strand than the Splendor, similar to the Gloriana. So when I basket weave with one of these, with the Planet Earth 6 Ply or the Gloriana, I use 3 strands. So of that, and I 4 strands of Splendor. Say it again.
Actually, I think I bought this at your shop, by the way, when I took that one class. You use 3 of this and of Gloriana, because I feel like this is a lot heavier.
As I recall, when I'm basket weaving with this, I know for sure I use 3. I can't say for sure. I honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure I remember a time when I was basket weaving with Gloriana. So maybe that's.
Yeah, usually, yeah. You're usually
doing, yeah. But I definitely used 3 of these when I basket weave.
Yeah. So you're going to tap and separate on this, just like.
Wake up, guys, wake up. You know what I find about this too is I had a sample. I don't know what I did with it. This is funny. This is way easier to ply out.
Well, that's why I feel like it's a little thicker.
Oh, I definitely think it's thicker than Splendor for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It is lovely. Again, wish I had room for it, although I've got some plans. Maybe I will. So yeah, I've got that.
Here first.
I have one of those back rooms. I have a back room that doesn't get enough traffic. So I thought, well, maybe I could put more threads back there and people would go back there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's true. So here's what we are here to say. We are here to say, do not be scared of stranded threads.
For sure.
Try them out. A good start might be anchor floss. A good start might be Splendor or Planet Earth 6 ply, and then move into these awesome over dyes and subtle. This is a subtle over dye. This is there's a lot of ways to use this stuff, and just don't be scared of it. And I think either one of us are more than happy to take time for a phone call or a quick
I'll just add
talk.
If you're going to try one, I might try Splendor before I try anchor floss. Even though it's more expensive, I think it's much easier to work with.
Easier to ply, and it lays.
Silk versus pearl cotton. Like pearl cotton has great colors, but it's not always super easy to work with.
And really quick, I'll make the argument for the stranded silk over the cut and go silk. Only in appearance for certain projects. So I love Pepper Pot. I love Vineyard Silk like Melissa does. Love, love, love them. But I definitely think there's a difference basket weaving with them or doing different stitches with them. They just look different. And so it's worth trying both, wouldn't you say?
For sure. For sure. I've got lots in all my stash, as you can see. I only had to go to one box to find this variety. You saw a lot of green threads for a reason.
That's what happens when you've been stitching for what, 30 years or something, you said?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You just love to throw in how old I am every
It
time.
has nothing to do with that. You started stitching when you were like a baby.
Okay, maybe, but.
Sheesh. All right. Well, this has been fun. And I hope everybody learned something. I certainly always learn something from you, my friend.
When we talk, we're like, wait, I never knew that. So I figure there's got to be a golden nugget or two, even for a seasoned stitcher out there. And if nothing else, they can close their eyes and start giggling and think about, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Well, I'm glad I could give you all that visual.
Love it. Well, it was great spending time with you. I hope everyone else enjoyed us or enjoyed the little knowledge we have to offer. And again, please hit subscribe. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.